I wanted to get into a couple things, seeing as how though um, we have Passover, we have Feast of Unleavened Bread um, coming forward, um, just a week away now. Um, we want to make sure that we are able to make the proper preparations, um, prior to, Passover being here. And that's kind of what I wanted to go into. That's what I wanted to go over here tonight. Um, Again, because we're a week out, right? So um, we want to deal with prepping for Passover. Okay. So I got a little something I put together. We'll go ahead and get into that straight away. Let me pull it up here. Make sure. Let's see. Okay, very good. Okay. We are dealing with prepping for Passover. Oh, good chat. Okay, we're gonna get right into this. We want to deal with this idea of causing the leaven to cease, right? Prepping for Passover, getting ready for the time and the season, the Moed time that we're moving into. Okay, so we're gonna start off here with First Corinthians 11:27 through 30, which says, "So that whoever should eat this bread or drink this cup of the master unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of the master. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For the one who is eating and drinking unworthily eats and drinks judgment to himself, not discerning the body of the master. Because of this, many are weak and sick among you, and many sleep." When we look at this particular verse, Paul had a situation with these people in Corinth where they were treating this Moed time. They were basically making it common. They were coming not necessarily for the actual meaning of the day, but they were coming to eat and drink. And you think about nowadays, Israelites, we come into this truth, but we still remember how we used to deal with Easter, and Easter, you come out the woodworks, right? You ain't been to church all year round. But when Easter come around, you there in your Easter best, right? So uh Paul was dealing with a similar situation where people was there, but they weren't there necessarily for what was going on there. They weren't actually connected to the symbolism and what was going on with the day. They was coming for a meal, right? So he's putting the importance here. I want to look at a couple of these things, these words here. What he's mentioning here. He says, so that whoever should eat of this bread and drink of this cup of the master unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of the master. So that's what we want to look at here. This word unworthily in the Greek, anaxios. It means irreverently. It means unworthily. Right. So if we think about something that's that we're treating irreverently, it's without due regard. We're not giving the thing its due regard to the authority and character of the supreme being. Okay, so we're talking about treating something irreverently, and in this case, something that is should be directed towards the Almighty, right? We're not giving the Almighty his due regard in this respects here, right? So it's without due respect to superiors, and this superior here that we're referring to is, of course, Yeshua, right? We're not giving Messiah his dues. We're not even really honoring the time, the Moed time, the set apart time. We're just gathering together. We're just kind of just here, right? But not dealing with the actual significance, right? So this is what we mean when we talk about this thing, this unworthily, dealing with this whole situation, the time, the significance that goes along with it. We're dealing with this thing irreverently. Okay, so Paul here is trying to get these people away from doing this. So he's saying we don't want to be dealing with this thing irreverently. He says, let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. Right? So there should be a examination, right? That's going forth before you're going to this situation. What am I even going to this thing for? What am I even participating in this thing for? Right? Examining yourself, right? Am I going just to see some people that I ain't seen in a while? Right? Or am I trying to figure out what the actual significance of this day and this time is? And I'm trying to apply all of this to my personal situation, right? Examine yourself, right? Let's look at this some more, right? We're looking at these Greek words here. Examine. This word means here tested, approved, to try, prove, discern, distinguish, approve. It has the notion of proving a thing, whether it is worthy or not, seeing if a particular thing is worthy or not. Right? If you go on shopping or something, right? You go shopping, you examine that fruit, right? You pick the thing up, you look at it, you knock on it, you smell it a little bit, right? You see if it's right. You see if it's ripe, right? You're looking at this thing and proving a thing whether or not it's worthy. Well, in this case, we're talking about ourselves, right? We're talking about us as individuals. We examining ourselves, right? And looking into our own souls and determining what our actual motives are, in our participation of this time, and this moed time. Examine. Okay. Okay, again, this word means to test, examine, prove, scrutinize. To scrutinize a thing. You're not just kind of just looking the thing over, right? We think about just examining in general, we're not just kind of passively looking at this thing. The idea of scrutinizing is involved in this word that Paul brings up when he says, examine yourself, scrutinize yourself. You fooling yourself? Determine that. Scrutinize yourself to see whether a thing is genuine or not. Right? This is the word that Paul used when he said, examine yourself. Don't come and even get into this situation unworthily. Scrutinize yourself.
Seems like we should do that anytime that we're coming before the Father.
Absolutely.
If it's a Moed time and he's calling us to come to him.
That's true. It just so happens that when we look at this particular time, there's extra emphasis put on these things, whether it be because they had a particular situation going on, or for whatever reason, this particular time has a different type of significance that's attached to it. Okay. So when we think about this word here, again, thinking about this idea of examining, the Hebrew equivalent of this word, because we got to get to the Hebrew. The Hebrew equivalent of this word is bachan, bachan, bachan. It means to test, especially metals, which we kind of saw this over in the Greek, right? To investigate, examine, prove, tempt, or trial, right? So again, when we move this over into the Hebrew, you still have that same thought here in terms of what needed to be going on, what Paul was causing these people, the mind frame that he was causing these people to be in. Examine yourself, look at yourself, prove yourself, try it, put yourself through a trial, scrutinize your own personal situation so that you come into this Moed time worthily.
I was thinking about like a car inspection. Like, it's an annual time to inspect yourself. Like,
Yeah.
check yourself. Like,
Right. Yeah. So unleavened bread, Passover unleavened bread is your inspection time, right? And see if you're gonna get them stickers on your soul, or see if your check engine light is on.
you need new tires or something. Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep on going here with this. Got a lot of slides to go through. Bahan, bahan. Again, this word is to examine, try, prove, scrutinize. This word is it's almost identical to what we see in the Greek. To try of gold, a person's heart, right? So again, this thing is serious, and we have to treat this time in that way. Okay, so let's keep on going here.
So you just going out by yourself?
It's live. It's already been on for. I just tapped it. I had an email alert.
Okay, shalom there. I'm gonna ask you to mute your self there. Okay, thank you very much. Good to see you there. You didn't miss too much. We just getting it. We just opening this thing up, right? So we're just gonna keep on going here. If I can get these. Okay, so Zechariah 13:9 says, "And I shall bring the third into fire and refine them as silver is refined, and try them," that's our word, bachan, "and try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I shall answer them. I shall say, this is my people, while they say, Yahweh is my Elohim." That's our word there, bachan, right? And this is something that the Most High is even doing, right? And he's doing this, and then look, you can see, right, when you get to the end of this trying situation, this is my people. This is my Elohim. We saying this is my Elohim. He's saying this is my people, right? After this whole scrutinization thing happens, right? So again, we thinking about this in the context of Pesach, right? We thinking of this in the context of going into. We're not even talking about unleavened bread, inside of unleavened bread. We talking about preparing to get ready for unleavened bread. Okay, this trying, this scrutinization thing, this bachan. Okay, so let's take a look back at the original Passover. All right, let's look at this, because this is gonna set us up for what we're getting into. Exodus 12 and 15. Exodus chapter 12, verse 15 says, 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Indeed, on the first day you cause leaven to cease from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that being shall be cut off from Yisrael. That's pretty serious right there. That's some serious consequences. If you get caught with leaven in your dwelling, if you fail to cause leaven to cease from inside of your situation within these 7 days, it says you will be cut off from Israel. We're gonna talk about what cut off means. We're gonna talk about it, but let's just keep on going. Because now we're talking about what it actually means to cause leaven to cease in your house, right? This word here says Shabbat, 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 right? Like what? Let's see what time it is. Oh, it's Shabbat right now, right? But it's translated here as cease, or actually to make or to cause to cease, to repose, that is, desist from exertion. We think about it as the ceasing that we mainly attach this word Shabbat to, is ceasing from work. We think about it in terms of ceasing from our daily activities, ceasing from our 6 days of creating things, right? Or even exertion, as it says right there. But this is talking about ceasing from having leavening in your house, in your dwellings, right? So just how we, we look at the Shabbat and you got people who they think that Shabbat is only about not working, right? Because they got that whole cease thing in their mind so strong, right? Where they might not do nothing else. They ain't trying to get with nobody. They might not even open up the book at all, but they ain't working though. They ceasing from that, right? But we supposed to be looking at this leaven like that, right? Where you got leaven in your situation, but for them 7 days, you stop the leaven from being in your situation. Talking about this, we talking about bread now, right? That thing has ceased. So in the context of Pesach, in the context of Passover, there needs to be an examination period before it even begins. Because how can I be inside of the 7 days and then worry about getting the leaven out? The leaven got to already be out.
You gotta do that work up front.
You got to do it first. For them 7 days, you supposed to cease from having it there. So you would have had to have gotten that stuff up out of there before the 7 days begin. And that's really what we're thinking about here, because again, if we're looking at moving into the unleavened bread, we moving into Pesach. We can't let unleavened bread be here and then worry about getting the leaven out. The leaven got to already be out. Then now all we doing is maintaining the unleavenedness of the time. We maintaining something that we already done started before.
So that means you don't go out and buy it during the week.
Right. You just gonna keep it going, right? You got it out already, and then you maintaining that status of unleavenedness during, right? But there has to be that examination period prior. You got to look around and get that stuff about from out the crevices. Because if it was found during the week of unleavened bread, during those 7 days, it says that being shall be cut off from Israel. Cut off. That word is karat. Karat. A verb meaning to cut off, to cut down, to make a covenant. This word can mean literally to cut something down or off, as grapes or branches. It can also be used figuratively as with people. Another important use of this word is to make a covenant. You're talking about making a covenant, things are cut, perhaps deriving from the practice of cutting an animal in two. In the covenant ceremony, Elohim made a covenant with Abraham. He cut the animals in two. Abraham walked in betwixt the animals because they was cut, right? They were karat. They was cut in two. They were separated. The animal was separated from itself. It was cut. But if we're talking about people being cut off from Israel, disconnected, cut off, right? Separated, cut off. You can't, if you cut an animal in half, you can't put it back together. It's a permanent situation, right? These covenants it's a serious situation. He made this covenant with Abimelech, and that wasn't a temporary thing, right? It was a karat. It was a covenant, right? There was a cutting involved. I got cuts and scrapes on me to this day. That ain't going nowhere, right? Because a cut, those things is permanent, right? So we had to remember when we thinking about this this word, the importance of this thing, right? He's saying, don't let leaven be found in your dwelling these 7 days. And again, in order for that to happen, you're gonna have to do it beforehand, right? This is a thing that you do in preparation for the time, right? Get it out beforehand.
Can I say something? Preparation is a Hebrew custom. You know, we have preparation every week, so we kind of have a practice every week of preparation. We live a life of preparation. You know what I mean? And so it's just preparation is key.
Yeah. Yeah, being spontaneous is is nice, but right here, this ain't calling for spontaneity. It's calling for preparation, right? And it's serious. The consequences is karat.
I don't want to be karat.
No, karat is bad. Okay, so again, in order to cause the leaven to cease in your house, you have to find it prior to it actually being unleavened bread. And the key word being find, right? When we started off talking about examining yourself, right? And now we're talking about finding this leaven. And if you don't find it and you fail to make leaven to cease in your house, again, being cut off is the penalty, right? So we got to find this bread. We got to find it. Now, one thing that we have to remember is that in those times, the way bread was leavened was a lot different than how we would typically do it today, right? Some people ain't making bread to begin with. They just go to the grocery store and buy it. But in general, if you're gonna buy bread today, we just go get us. If we're gonna make bread, we're gonna go get us a pack of yeast, right? We're gonna take our little Fleischmann's active dry yeast, with the little kosher K on it, and we're gonna sprinkle some of that. I don't know what they do. I think you sprinkle it in water or something. I don't know. you you get this stuff going, right? And then you mix your ingredients and that and so on and so forth, right?
Water that gets the yeast alive.
Yeah. So this yeast thing was like a separate thing. So now, we just go to the cupboard and we grab the yeast out and we throw it in the garbage, right? And take it outside or whatever, right? But back in those days, they would have used a leavening starter, which was simply flour and water mixed with air. And in that air, you had natural occurring bacteria, right? You would just take some flour and some water, and you would basically be whipping this air into it. And in the air would be this natural occurring bacteria. And you would just put this somewhere and just let it sit and grow. Like now we might put it in the refrigerator, but of course they didn't have no refrigerator, so they had to take it and go put it in some place. They would go put it like in this dark place where it would be undisturbed, where it sit up in there and grow. So I think you add to it or you keep on stirring it. I'm not sure about the process necessarily, but whatever it is, this thing grows over time. And again, the leavening, you're not adding yeast here. It's just the natural bacteria that's in the air. That's because you have to keep on stirring it and allowing that air to get in there, right? Which is important to where we going to, right? But again, you had to take this thing and so you might have those little those yeast starters in various places throughout your dwelling where it can grow undisturbed, right? It would be somewhere it wasn't like it was just in the kitchen or in the refrigerator, right? You would take that thing, you would put it somewhere, and that thing would be off in the cut somewhere where it could just sit up there and grow undisturbed. Then you would go back to it, stir it up. I can't remember if you added water, more flour, or whatever. I don't remember.
You keep feeding it. You keep adding.
Yeah, because I think it grows, or if it, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens, but all I know is it's not the idea is you're not adding yeast, you're adding air to it by stirring it and then putting it back and letting it grow. But you're taking this thing and you're putting it out the way so that it can be able to grow undisturbed. Okay. But you were supposed to get the leaven out. You got to get this leaven out, right? So again, you got to go out here and find this thing. You got to remember, did I put some of this over there at the other side of the little thing over there in the one spot? Let me go over here. You got to look for the thing, right? You got to go around and you got to search, and you got to remember where you might have placed these things at, and then you go get them. First Corinthians 5 and 6. We're gonna get back to this idea of stirring in this wind, this air into the flour and the water. We're gonna get back to that. Okay, but First Corinthians 5 and 6 says, "Your boasting is not good. Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the entire lump?" Right. So this thing basically grows and swells over time as you stir it and continue to allow the air to intermix in it. Right. This thing grows up, and then all you need is just you get your little spoon of this stuff here. It's not like you use this whole thing. You take just a little spoon of it out and use it. And you can just keep on adding this to this, and it just keep on growing or whatever. Right, but you just need a little of this stuff here to leaven the whole lump. Just like you just need a little bit of yeast, right? But Paul, when he's talking about these people sitting up here messing around with they mother-in-laws or whatever it was that situation was over there in First Corinthians. He talking about sin, right? He's talking about getting that leaven out, because he's referring it back to sin. And it really is the perfect metaphor, because leaven is that agent that causes things to rise. But that's what sin is though, in you. Right? That's what sin does inside of you, right? He's using this metaphor. He didn't make it up. Yeshua used it too. In regards to this leaven and getting it out. So when we're thinking about this idea of searching for the leaven before unleavened bread, we have this picture, this thing that we do in terms of literal bread and literal leaven, literal yeast, or if you're making sourdough, your little sourdough starter or what have you. This idea of getting that stuff out. But from a spiritual perspective, we talking about sin. That's what you're supposed to be looking around for, is that sin in your situation and getting it out. Not during unleavened bread, but before. Right? So leaven equals sin. Leaven equals this thing that causes to rise or to swell or to elevate. James, let's look at James here. We building on something, right? We getting all the ingredients together. We building something up. James chapter 1, 13 through 16 says, let no one say when he is enticed, I am enticed by Elohim. For Elohim is not enticed by evil matters, and he entices no one. But each one is enticed when he is drawn away by his own desires and trapped. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth sin. And sin, when it has been accomplished, brings forth death. Do not go astray, my beloved brothers. By his own desires, he's enticed. Don't blame it on the Most High. He ain't testing you. That's your own carnal mind doing that. That's what he's talking about right here. It's your own desires that's getting you hung up, right? You the one that sat up there and put the flour in the water and stirred it up and stirred the air into it and stuck it over in the corner where you was going to forget about it. You did that. All right, but we're going to look at another one. We're going to deal with this. But we're going to
see where you're going.
We're going to compound it. We're going to compound it over here, right? 1 John 2, 15 and 16. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world of the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. Again, we're talking about these things that's not of the world. These things that are not of the Father and are of the world. And these things are what? Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. Notice James speaks of being drawn of your own lusts, drawn of your own lust. And John mentions these various lusts, which appear to be expressing the same concept. And they are, in fact, the same word as here, your own desires and his lust, which is epithumia, which means desire, lust, craving, longing, desire for what is forbidden or lust, right? This longing desire for a thing.
That sounds like a condition. Epithumia.
Yeah. So your own strong desires and your own longings lead you into sin. Right? Remember, the Most High, he ain't tempting you. It's your own strong desires that's doing it. It's your own longings that's doing it. And this time, right, you need to be looking inside of yourself and seeing where those things are and getting rid of those things. Right? We're not talking about this ain't external stimuli. It's internal. Right? We go around and we look for the crumbs in the couch and the yeast in the cupboards as a picture of how we're supposed to be looking at our own soul. Right? It's not from Elohim. Most High didn't make you do it, and the devil didn't make you do it either. It's naturally in you, from you, just like you were stirring up that flour and that water. And the only thing that was happening was just air from you stirring was getting in it. The mixture of that which comes from the earth, plus the air equals something that naturally wants to rise. The mixture of that which comes from the earth plus the air equals something that naturally wants to rise. Well, that's what we saw with our bread starter, something that comes from the earth, the water and the grain. And then all you did was stir it, and all of a sudden that thing began to swell. Genesis 2:7 says, and Yahweh Elohim formed the man out of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils breath of lives. And the man became a living being, a living soul, nephesh, a breathing creature, an animal, vitality, alive. But look over here, appetite, desire, lust, pleasure, right? This appetite thing is serious, right? Because when we think about nephesh, this soul, we're animals, really, right? We're really animals, right? The thing that differentiates us from being animals, is really our intellect, right? And we can make fire. Right? We can do things, we can do mathematics, right? Things like that, but we're still animals, right? But it's these things over here, these appetites and this desire and this lust and this pleasure. When this stuff starts to kick in, right? These are the things that cause us to swell our appetites. Look at the original thing that happened, right? That it was an appetite. Nakash made that thing look good. He sold it in such a way where it became appealing to Adam and Chava. It was appealing.
He made their he kind of like lit that fire on their appetite to want it.
Yeah, right. He simply just made a suggestion. That's all he did. He simply made a suggestion, right? And we have to remember that he didn't put nothing in them, right? He didn't change their molecular structures. He just put a little bug in their ear. That thing ain't gonna kill you. It's good for food. Go ahead, get you some of that. Maybe it is appetite, desire, lust, pleasure.
It made them want that thing.
That's nephesh right there. That's your soul, because that's what your soul do. That lady looks mighty fine. I think I'm gonna go deal with her, even though I got my own lady. That little thing over there, that looks like I need that thing, but I ain't got no money right now. I'm just gonna slip it in my pocket. Right? Appetite, desire for something that don't belong to you. Right? We're gonna have appetites and desires for things, right? But when those things are leading and guiding us, that's when it becomes wrong, right? Just like how we saw these things happen in our minds, but when those things become manifest, when those thoughts become conceived, then sin come out. But it starts from the appetite. That thing's growing. That thing grows in there like that water and the flour and the air that's getting mixed with the natural occurring bacteria inside. So when it comes to finding the leaven and causing it to cease, that's within your soul. You need to be doing this inside of your being, right? This needs to be being directed towards your desires. What kind of things are you desiring, right? What's your appetites about? That's how you prepare yourself for unleavened bread. That's how you prepare yourself for Passover. That's how you eat worthily. That's how you examine yourself, by looking inside of your soul, looking at your own desires and your own appetites, and seeing if those things coincide with those things that are pleasing to the Almighty. And if they're not, you get them things out. Right. But you got to go and look and find those things that are in those deep, dark places that was been sitting over there, and you just forgot all about it. You wasn't even thinking about it because you stuck it over in the corner. But now you need to do some scrutinizing of your soul and go find that thing.
Get rid of it.
Yeah, and get it out.
And don't feel bad about it, because sometimes people can get that guilt, that guilt complex where they just feel guilty about something. They're not really gonna get rid of it, but they're gonna hold on to it and feel bad about it.
Well, I'm gonna say, if that guilt don't bring you to the place of getting rid of it, you not understanding what this whole situation is in the first place. Because remember, if that leaven is found in your dwelling, you're cut off. Right? This thing is about your relationship with the Almighty. This is about you actually being counted as his or not his. Right? We're talking about a week, but the week is exemplary of our life. We can't be part of Israel and our appetites and our desires are that of the heathens, the nations. Right? We got to go and get those things out. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. Whether the lump is you, or whether the lump is the people that you with. So, what drives your desire or your soul? What drives your appetites or your soul? What is it that motivates you? Is it those things that are pleasing to the Almighty? Or is it your carnal mind? Or is it the thing that comes from the earth? Okay, going backwards now, 1 John 2:15 and 16, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lusts of the flesh, the lusts of the eyes, and the pride of life. These are the things, right? So when we look at these things and think about these lust of the flesh, right? The desires that got to do with your flesh, with your carnal mind, these things that are inside of you. The lust of the eyes, the things that are on the outside that maybe you want inside of you, right? And this pride of life, right? The pride, this thing of swelling. The thing that makes you rise and feel good is these external things that are connected to the world. Let's look at some of these things that we could say is connected with the lusts of the flesh. Adultery, unlawful sexual relations between men and women, single or married. Adultery. There's various examples of these things in these these verses. We're not going to look at these because this lust of the flesh list is pretty long, but feel free to jot some of these down, and even go back and if you're watching this later, pause it You know what I mean? Look at these scriptures, right? Well, adultery, lusts of the flesh, right? Fornication, same as adultery. Oh, something that got cut off. Besides all manner of unlawful relations, right? These are all lusts of the flesh. These things, when you think about these things, are desires of your flesh. It's interesting that a lot of these things in this list are kind of sexually connected. A lot of these things in this list from Galatians, actually, 5, I think, 20, 21, I think, the list. 5 and 19, I think it starts. But a lot of these, like I said, are sexual. But again, that is the kind of the epitome of the desires of the flesh, right? Where we, where we just all the way revert back to our animalistic methods and ways. Uncleanness. Oh man, someone's got cut off there. The opposite of purity. Then it gets into some more kind of sexual sins. It's interesting that these words, when you look at these actual words in the Greek, they literally are bringing you back to, it's not like this is just some kind of list and they're just trying to put all of this. These Greek words literally are pointing back to all of this sexual things. 1, 2, 3, I think there might be 17 of them. And it keeps on going back to these physical sexual desires, right? With these lusts of the flesh. Very serious. Lasciviousness. Lasciviousness is the promoting or partaking of that which tends to produce lewd emotions, anything tender, tending to foster sex, sin, and lust. When we think about lasciviousness, if someone is dealing lasciviously, it's kind of causing me to fall into lust. Like when you think about lasciviousness, what the anti type, the counter action of this is like modesty, right? The opposite of lasciviousness is modesty, right? Lasciviousness is kind of loose, where it's causing others to kind of be lustful after you, right? And these are things again that Paul has on this list of these things that he's calling the works of the flesh. We're putting them in the category of the lusts of the flesh. But we saw these things that deal with these actual different types of illicit sexual things. But this one here is dealing with you causing you in some type of clothing that's showing your whole body off, where it's causing others to look at you in a way that is it's causing other people to lust after you. Lasciviousness, idolatry.
Can I say one thing about?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
That like within the different feminist movements now, they'll be like, you could wear whatever you want, and if somebody feels a certain kind of way, then that's their problem. But a Hebrew woman, she's going to dress modestly because she understands the concept of not being lascivious, not in a intentional way striving to cause somebody to lust after.
Yeah. And this by no means is saying that, if I see somebody walking around with some type of lewd clothes on, that gives you the right to attack somebody or violate someone. But this is about what's going on in your mind,
Mhm.
right? Which could potentially be the catalyst
Mhm.
for some crazy person to actually go into here. What's this? This is let's look. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. I don't think I added this verse, and I'm looking into Mark. Mark chapter 7, starting with verse 20. 19, because it entered not into his heart, but into his belly, and goes out into the draught, purging all meats. And he said, that which comes out of the man, that defiles the man for from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adultery, fornications, murders, thieves, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, the evil eye, blasphemy, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. We're talking about what's coming from inside of you. Just a simple fact, because you are this thing that came from the earth and got wind blown into you. Just because you are this nephesh thing that just lives off of appetites. Okay, idolatry. Idolatry includes anything on which affections are passionately set, right? When we set our affections passionately on something, this becomes a problem because our affections and passions are supposed to be set on the Almighty, right? And when we have these things, we end up putting these things above Him, right? And this really, I would say, really leads to all of the things, because when you put things above the Almighty, like your own self, where you're not even.
That just sounds really like ridiculous. You don't put yourself above
But
your creator.
but that's what you do, because you don't care about what's going to happen to you as a result of these things that you're doing. You just do whatever you want to do. You're worshiping yourself.
How could the created thing put its created self above the creator?
That's what we do, because we don't care what the Almighty wants. We just do whatever we want to do, right? Where that's idolatry. That literally is idolatry. You put your affections and your passions above that of the Almighty. That's idolatry, right? This is these things. But that's a lust of the flesh. You're causing your wants and desires, and you're putting those things above that of the Almighty.
Trying to raise up over Him.
That's what you are doing. That was what He didn't want for to happen. You're gonna be like Elohim. That's what He didn't want you to do. But you did exactly thing. If you eat of that tree, it's gonna cause you to be like Elohim and have the knowledge of good and evil. All right, next. Witchcraft, sorcery, practice of dealing with evil spirits, magical incantations, and casting spells and charms upon one by means of drugs and potions of various kinds. Enchantments were used to inflict pain, evil pains, hatred, sufferings, and death, or to bring good health, love, and other blessings. Right? When we get into these, this is a thing, we think about these different types of drugs and things, these mind altering things, these things that kind of put us in kind of a different frame of mind. But we have to remember that a lot of these things, these drugs and things, they're literally used. They're literally used to cause you to be in a different mind state and kind of open you up to things that's dealing with these, excuse me, with these evil spirits and so on and so forth. Right? This word here, pharmakeia, that's where pharmacy comes from, right? And you get they come up with all of these drugs and things. Really, they've perfected the art of kind of recreating and building upon the things that are naturally found in nature. But before they had all these chemicals and stuff, people was going and getting these different types of herbs and things and these mind altering things and using them, in this sorceries and witchcraft, right? So we have to remember that, these things are on this list of these lusts of the flesh, right? Okay, we keep on going. Hatred, enmity, hatred, bitter dislike, abhorrence, malice, ill will against anyone, right? Tendency to hold grudges against or be angry at someone. These things is on the list. When we think about this idea of just, being bitter and disliking people or having this abhorrence or malice, ill will against people, what's the point of it really? What do it really do? At the end of the day, it's just carnal, right? It's just carnal. Like, who cares? It's not even why. Like, what's the point? Why hold on to these things, right? What's at the root of these feelings that we have for people that are these ill feelings that we have towards people? At the end of the day, it's some selfish thing, right? Just let that thing go, right? Because when you're holding on to it, it's putting you over here on this list. Lust of the flesh. It's your carnal mind telling you that you need to look at somebody like something, right? Variance. Quarreling, debating, disputes, right? If all you want to do is just fight all the time, it's people who just want to they just want to figure out how they can sit up here and just contrarian, right? That's being variant. That's variance, right? Where that's your carnal mind. All you just want to do is just be adversarial all the time. Lust of the flesh. Emulations, envies, jealousies, striving to excel at the expense of another, seeking to surpass or outdo others. Somebody always want to one up you about something. I just got this one thing over here. Oh, you got one of them? I've been had that. Like last year or something. Now I got like 5 of them joints. Somebody who just always just got to be better than you, right? That's emulations, right? And or you looking at somebody and you're like, man, they got so and so. You hating on them now. You can't stand that they doing better than you in whatever this thing is. Oh, I got to do this. I got to get better than. That's jealousy, right? Emulations. That's your carnal mind. Most High, he don't like these things, right? This is in this list of these works of the flesh. These things is counted as wickedness. Wrath, indignation, fierceness, turbulent passions, domestic and civil turmoils, rage, determined and lasting anger. Like when you just can't even, you just need to get your revenge. I just need to execute my wrath on you. You did something to me. I ain't gonna rest until I do something worse to you. Till I pour my anger upon you. Wrath. Like we're not supposed to be dealing in that, right? Because like what is that? That's just your again, this is just the flesh. That's just your carnality. That's you looking at something that's going on that it got to be some worldly thing. It got to be that. And we got to be able to just turn away from these things. So as we looking at these things, we have to be able to look within ourselves. If these are things that we could somehow look inside of ourselves and see these things, then we got to get these things out. Right? If we able to look and see ourselves in these, in any way, even a little bit, even just a little bit of these things inside, because all it's going to do is grow. Strife, contention, strife about words, angry contentions, contest for, I just got to be better, contest for superiority and advantage, strenuous endeavor to equal or pay back in kind the wrongs done, right? Strife, right? If you're not able to let stuff go, right? If you just and you just got to get your paybacks, right? If you just got to just be the one that's just causing you just causing strife and contention among people, that's works of the flesh, right? And that's on this list of wicked acts and deeds, right? That if we see these things inside of us, we're supposed to be getting these things out. Seditions, popular disorders, stirring up strife in religion, government, home, of any place. A lot of these things also are kind of related to each other and build off of each other, right? But he's kind of just being kind of thorough in this list. Paul is in Galatians chapter 5 with these things that we need to be divisions. People can find a reason why they just don't want to be with somebody. I could make up a whole list of reasons why I ain't trying to be with this one or that one. But that's seditions, though. That's divisions of parties and factions, right? Instead of trying to figure, the opposite of seditions is unity, right? People need to be able to look and figure out how we can agree instead of looking at the things that separate us, right? Because again, this seditions, it's just pride. All these things we look at, it's all just pride, seditions, strife, wrath. It's all pride. Just different manifestations of it. But again, if we're able to look in ourselves, if we're able to go into those dark places and find those little bowls of seditions or strife or wrath that's growing off in the cut of your soul, you just got to get that thing out, throw it in the garbage, get it out, right? Deal with that thing now. Heresies. The word itself has no evil meaning. It simply refers to a doctrinal view or belief at variance with the recognized and accepted tenets of a system, church, or party. The word heretic is used once in scripture, that's in Titus 3:10, and means one who holds a heresy, a dissenter, nonconformists. It only takes on an evil meaning when sound doctrine is rejected and fallacy is accepted and taught in preference to truth. If the doctrine is unsound and the one dissents from the main body who holds the fallacy, then he is a heretic in a good sense. So when we think about this word heresy, it's kind of like covet, where it in and of itself is not something that's evil in and of itself, as when it's done in this kind of uh inordinate manner that makes it to be that, right? So again, this could be coupled with this whole variance, from the other one and the seditions, right? Where I come up with this thing in my mind, this doctrine, and that I come up with, but this doctrine is just is causing separation. But I got to hold on to this thing. But it's this thing that's it's like a build off of these other things. You being this contrarian, and I just got to just do this thing here. But again, it's this thing that's just separating, that's dividing. You got these people, they don't want to, you can't be connected with people and these things. These things is called heresies, and these things is what's on this list, Paul's list, not my list, of things that is called the works of the flesh. This is the lust of the flesh. These things are of the world. Things that are of the world are not of the Father. Envyings, pain, ill will, and jealousy at the good fortune or blessing of another. The most base of all degrading and disgraceful passions. Envyings. Right? We think about these things, jealousies and ill will, right? These things they seem kind of obvious, right? This seems like, well, it's jealousy. I'm not gonna sit up here and be jealous of people. I'm not gonna sit up here and feel a certain kind of way about people. You can say that. It's easy to say that, but then let somebody be like, well, why don't you just hang out with so and so and them? Well, I don't really mess with so and so like that. I don't hate them or nothing like that, but I don't even mess with them like that. But you trying to make it sound good, but really there's some stuff inside of you that's keeping you from doing that. Right? It's some ill will up inside of you that's keeping you from doing that. And we have to be able to get to a place where we're able to look inside of ourselves and examine yourself, scrutinize your situation and look for these things and make sure that we don't got these things inside of us growing off in the cut. Murders. Right? But Yeshua is talking about, it's right here. Look, hatred. Murders. We obviously can't be killing people, but we can't be killing them in our mind either. You're dead to me. You just murdered them. You murdered them. Right?
OMG, I had to laugh on that. I used to really be this way.
What, killing people in your mind?
Killing people in my mind, strife. I mean, a lot of these ways, honestly, not to get off subject or anything like that, but a lot of these ways, just I battle with some struggles still, but it's not as bad now that I'm in this place that I am with the Most High. It's kind of like it's helped me so much to become a whole different person. But I just had to laugh because the way you said it, and I always use that term, like don't. I've cut people off and held a grudge for years.
Yeah.
Like if you do wrong by me, but I had to understand things differently. He did grant me a lot of understanding and taught me a lot of discipline, self-control and stuff. But that's crazy you said that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just glad. I mean, listening to this is just. It just sounds. A lot of it sound like me, but I'm just glad that I'm transitioning and just.
It's dead.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I have said. I have like.
That
I was.
person is dead. That
I'm
old
ready to.
you, that person's dead. That old
Yeah,
you.
that's not, man. Listen, even when a little piece of thought comes in here in my mind, like he constantly talks to me on what, like, don't even go there, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now what I'm saying now is a time where you're kind of over scrutinizing yourself, looking inside of yourself and being sure that these things are out the way, right? And looking and making sure, looking in the crevices, right? Just how we do at Passover time. We picking up pillows, we looking in cupboards, we emptying out all of this stuff, looking for all this yeast. We need to be doing that in our souls,
Even
right?
more so.
Even more so. Like that's where we actually need to be doing it, getting that stuff out, right? Dealing with those things, giving those things over to the Most High. Okay, so 16, drunkenness, living intoxicated, a slave to drink and drinking bouts, right? Intoxication, right? So I think this also goes back to that whole witchcraft thing, because when we think about this idea of drunkenness and intoxication, right? We have to be able to be sober minded, right? We can't be and the idea of being a slave to this thing, like it do these substances and things. Are you a slave to these things? Are you a slave to these things? That's your flesh. That's your carnal mind. We can't sit up here and make excuses for, well, I'm struggling with this or that thing. Most High is able to strengthen you to just put these things down, right? It don't gotta be about some battle, right? Because otherwise, you in terms of looking at this thing in terms of this intoxication, at the end of the day, it's double because it's also an idol. Because you put in these things, these intoxicating things, above the Almighty. I mean, do we actually treat the Most High like, if I don't get over here and get in this Bible right now, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Shaking and jump. I got to get over here and get in this closet. And I got to speak to the Almighty. If I don't, I just can't do nothing. But that's how we be about stuff that make us feel good, though. That's how we be about these intoxicating things that we have in our life. Plotting. I'm gonna get this so I can go over here and grab this so I could you know what I'm saying, real quick. You're a slave to these things. But if we talking about these works of the flesh, we got to get these things out of here, right? And again, when we talk about all of these things, this stuff is leaven, where the Most High said, if leaven is found in your dwelling, you're gonna be cut off. This verse talk about these people won't be in the kingdom of Elohim.
Be in that rain.
Revelings, lascivious and boisterous feastings. This is like just some overindulgence with obscene music. Sinful activities, pleasures. Oh, there's the pleasures and desires, right? That's your soul again. Revelings. I'm just rioting, just wildness, just overindulgence in carnality, just with no regard for anything, but just, I just want to just do whatever just feels good to me, whether it's hurtful to anybody else or not. Don't even care. These pleasures, right? Revelings. All these things is lust of the flesh. We got a lot of lists here. I'm gonna just go through these. Lust of the eyes, covetousness, adultery, covetousness, all things desired. What's that? Ecclesiastes. I'm gonna look that up real quick. Ecclesiastes 2, verse 10. Says, and whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I just did whatever I wanted to do. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was all my portion of all my labor. Just whatever I want to do, I'm going to do it. Right? That's the lust of the eyes, right? And idolatry. Let's see. All kinds of evil. We looked at, that was Matthew. All kinds of evil, which actually, again, coming from your heart and the pride of life. Inordinate self-esteem is what pride is. Inordinate self-esteem, an unreasonable conceit of one's own superiority in talents, beauty, wealth, accomplishments, rank, or elevation. Elevation, that's an interesting connection there. In office, which manifests itself in lofty airs. I'm so great. No one can compare to me. These little so-and-sos, they can't even lace my bootstraps. But we're talking about the pride of life, right? So I got this inordinate self-rising about all of these things that are connected to the world, right? Not to the Almighty, right? Because he don't care about the things of the world. But I'm so overly excited about the things of the world that these are the things that's motivating my situation. These are the things that make me feel inordinate self-esteem. These are the things that make me feel good and wealthy and beautiful and accomplished. These things that's connected to the world. That's the pride of life that the Most High said he don't got no parts of that. A little lag with my there we go. Self-righteousness. Self-righteousness. Right? When we think about self-righteousness, this got to be connected to, if we're gonna say self-righteousness, it's always going to be connected to it's always going to be connected to us and our own strength moving in things that we are able to do. And, this is where we had to remember where Messiah is always at the forefront of our life, right? Our righteousness is not because we are so good and worthy or so on and so forth, but it's about what Messiah has done inside of you, right? That spirit that dwells on the inside of you, that connects you back to the Almighty. Oh yeah, I see here Matt put this Proverbs 8:3. I think I got that on here. I think I didn't even get to it, but that's good verse there too. If it don't come up quick, I'm just gonna pull it up. Positions, people striving to be in positions above and
Over people.
ruling and
Ruling,
just I got to be I'm your superior, I'm over you, like, and striving for that, right? This is the pride of life, right? We got to get out of these things because
Hey,
these things
Tom.
yeah.
It's not the same to me with Hiskey not by my side. You know what I mean? I love Hiskey and Moshe. You know what I mean? It's not the same. I'm sitting at the crib like, man, where are Hiskey and Moshe at, man?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He said his kid ain't here to ask him is he all right, do he need anything. He said it feels
Yeah.
weird. It feels weird.
Yeah. He don't deliver either. So you just yeah. Yeah. Okay, power. Right? Power. I think that verse right there talking about how the Most High gonna take that power. Right? Matter of fact, what does that say? Leviticus 26:19. I'm pretty sure that verse that Matt put up is in this list here. Leviticus 26:19. Yeah, this is the blessings and the curses over here in Leviticus 26. 26:19. And I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron and your earth as brass. Right? We gonna sit up here and try to give ourselves these positions and power and self-righteous. Most High said he gonna break us down. Right? He ain't thinking about our little power that we think we got.
What's he gonna do? He's just gonna use his little fingernail
Mm-hmm.
and just take it away.
Mm-hmm. Poof.
Poof.
Riches, these little things. All this is a pride of life, sit up here and
But
people.
This is what everybody wants. They want power.
Yeah,
they want position.
You want all of this stuff.
They want riches.
And all this stuff is connected with the and when we make our life be about this stuff right here, Most High, he ain't about that. This is not what our life is supposed to look like, right? Chasing after all of these things here. But if we see that these things are in our situation, right? This is what we're talking about in terms of this whole this idea of scrutinizing ourselves. We need to get this stuff out, right? We need to get this stuff out. Beauty, right? We sit up here trying to make ourselves just be a certain way and just just trying to just be kind of just desirous to man or to woman, right? And that being your focus, right? My focus is just to just be cause people to look at me like strength of to war, right? Where you just all you want to do is just kind of just it's all of these things got to do with you building up yourself, right? Where I'm making myself be someone who I'm just going to be able to physically just conquer whoever I want. Like this is what we're talking about as far as strength to war. It's not just talking about like it don't have nothing to do with you kind of like being fit or anything like that, or you just even looking nice, or you even just having money. But when we taking these things to the extreme and we think about the idea of strength to war, I want to just be able to just dominate people, right? And this is what we're talking about here, right? Constant boasting of oneself, glory in sexual activities. Men get into these type of things, when they in their carnal minds, talking about your things that you have conquered over the whatever. Like these things this is the pride of life. Right? What was that? Proverbs 8, verse what?
13. He just posted it right now.
Oh, I don't even gotta look for it. Good, perfect. The fear of I'm definitely got this verse on there. Now that I see it, I definitely have it on there. These are the things that we should all be searching for in our dark places beforehand, so that during unleavened bread, they are not found in us. Right? Again, unleavened bread, we have this the actual thing that we're supposed to be doing in terms of the bread and in terms of the leaven and getting it out. Right? That's what we have. But we have to be able to look at this from a spiritual perspective and understand, the spiritual underlying principles that's involved in unleavened bread. And again, this is prior to. We're not even there yet. This is before you get there. Right? This is what you're supposed to be doing ahead of time. Get the leaven out. Get it out. Here we go, right here, right? The fear of Yahweh is to hate evil. I have hated pride and arrogance and the evil way and the perverse mouth. Right? If I hate this thing, if I hate evil, if I see some of that stuff, I'm getting rid of it ASAP.
I think about like a bug that I hate.
You hate bugs. About some bugs.
I want it out. Like,
but that's
right
how we
away.
got to be about evil, though. We got to be like that about evil. Evil. Pride and arrogance. That's how we got to be about it. By getting that stuff out. I hate the evil way. Right? I hate pride and arrogance. I got to get that stuff far away from me if I hate it. He said that's what the fear of Yahweh is. The fear of Yahweh is to hate evil. I can't stand that junk. I got to get so far away from that stuff if I hate it. If I'm not trying to get far away from it, I must like it. I don't mind it anyway. I don't mind it.
It don't bother me.
No, it's not that big of a deal. Just a little evil just right over there. It ain't doing nothing. It's just over there chilling. Most High said the fear of Yahweh is to hate it. I hate pride. I hate arrogance. That's like proof that we are connected to them. That's the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. When we talk about the fear of Yahweh, that's how I understand who the Most High is if I fear him. So if I understand who he is, then I really should be hating these things. When we look at what is represented in even the preparation for Pesach and unleavened bread, it shows us that there must be some real introspection and self-examination before we get there. This don't got nothing to do with these 7 days that's up and coming. We talking about beforehand, right? Actively purge and remove those things that exemplify leaven. And then during those 7 days, and during these 7 days that are approaching, not only for this 1 week, but as practice for the rest of your life, right? So when we think about getting ready for unleavened bread, right? Unleavened bread is not the time to get the stuff out. Unleavened bread is not the time to be doing some introspection and self-examination. You supposed to have did that already. You supposed to already have been at that place. You supposed to already had did all of those things beforehand, right? And then during unleavened bread, now you practicing the new way that you started, right? Just like when we sit up here and you eating matzah every day, you practicing this thing that you begun already, but you already done got the leaven out, right? So we got this time ahead of time where we get ourselves ready to go into Passover, to go into Feast of Unleavened Bread. We're supposed to be looking inside of ourselves now. We're supposed to be finding these new ways to move closer to the Almighty now, and then put those things into practice during that week and then forevermore, right? By that time, it's too late. You done already let the leaven get in. We have to, as we prepare for unleavened bread, as we get ready for that time of having the leaven out, we have to look at ourselves from a spiritual perspective and see where we lack, where we need growth, what things we need to add to our situation, and get those things ready, for unleavened bread, and be ready to do those things then, like you already having those things in place by that time you ready to go, right? Because remember, Paul said you need to come when you ready to eat this bread and drink this wine, come worthily. You already done examined yourself, right? It's not something that you even doing Passover night when you getting ready to do it. It should have already been done at that point. You already need to get the leaven out even now. Right? So
I like that math equation you had in there.
I had a math equation. Oh yeah.
The air plus
What was it?
the earth plus the things that come from the earth plus the air
Yeah.
is equal to 11.
That's it. Yeah. Right. Because when we think about ourselves, that's the thing that we have, that's the thing that's being cultivated, is our soul. And we don't gotta sit up here, and again, we don't gotta sit up here and blame the devil. We don't gotta sit up here and blame the Almighty. Because just because we're human beings, we have these appetites and desires that need to be checked. Just from the simple fact that we are that which comes from the earth, and we got mixed with some air and stirred up and set into a dark place. Just because of the simple fact that we are a nefesh, there is that desires and appetites that need to be checked inside of us, right? So
Left unchecked, it's gonna rise.
It ain't gonna do nothing but grow. It ain't gonna do nothing but grow. Okay, that being said, we're gonna end with that. You got any questions or comments, Christian and Monet? Anybody on the YouTube?
No, I really ain't got no questions. The only comments I got is well, no, I'll text here. So that's more so about stuff that has yeast in it. But no, it was good, very informative.
The best.
Chris said y'all are the best.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all bless you. I'm glad to see y'all little emojis there. And
I asked if there's any questions or comments on the YouTube.
Oh, anybody have anything over there? If not, I'm gonna go ahead and be done with this here. Stop this.